Get ready as we count down the 15 forgotten British side dishes from the 1970s that deserve a comeback. From creamy gratins once reserved for special occasions to buttery seasonal vegetables, sharp pub classics, and school dinner favorites, these dishes tell a story of nostalgia, changing tastes, and resilience through economic upheaval. Each side on our list earned its place for the flavors and traditions that brought families together, and the surprising reasons they vanished from our tables. Some might surprise you with their decadence, while others reveal the comfort at the heart of British food. Which lost classic tops the ranking? Let's begin our countdown with number 15. Number 15, potato dauphinoise, sometimes called lyonnaise in British cookbooks, set the tone for 1970s dinner party indulgence. Thinly sliced potatoes layered with garlic, cream, or whole milk, and sometimes a hint of nutmeg, then baked until the top bubbled golden and crisp. The crust promised a satisfying crackle, giving way to soft, melting centers. For many, this was the ultimate side to a rare steak or Sunday roast, a signal that the meal was meant to impress. But as the decade wore on, attitudes shifted. Early diet columns and slimming clubs warned against the fat-laden sauces. And suddenly, the creamy gratin became a casualty of the low-fat boom. Supermarket freezers filled with lighter, quicker vegetable mixes, pushing this classic to the back of the recipe box. Yet its appeal never truly faded. Modern cooks swap double cream for half-fat milk, or use olive oil and a sprinkle of fresh herbs, reviving the spirit of the dish without the guilt. Few sides capture the era's sense of occasion quite like that rich, garlic-scented bake, still perfect for a cozy night in. Number 14. Savory rice brought a splash of color and a hint of curry house adventure to 1970s party buffets. Long grain rice, cooked until just tender, tumbled together with peas, diced peppers, and the occasional carrot, all dusted in mild curry powder. It was the era's answer to continental flair, bright, mild, and just exotic enough for cautious palates. Supermarket packets and bird's-eye frozen mixes turned this once homemade dish into a convenience staple, promising a side that could be ready in minutes, no chopping required. By 1978, industry estimates suggested that over half of household vegetable consumption was frozen or tinned, a leap from the previous decade's reliance on fresh produce. That shift made savory rice a fixture of the buffet table, easy to scoop alongside cold chicken legs or pork pies. The dish marked a turning point when corporate convenience began to edge out tradition, and the sideboard started to look a lot more like the supermarket freezer aisle. Today, its gentle curry warmth and cheerful colors invite a second look, especially as retro food trends circle back to the dishes that defined an era of British entertaining. Number 13, minted potatoes signaled the arrival of spring on British dinner tables. Tender new potatoes, their skins just barely scraped, tumbled in melted butter and a shower of chopped fresh mint. The aroma alone promised something lighter after a winter of stews and root vegetables. Served warm, these glossy potatoes were the classic companion for roast lamb, the mint echoing the sauce on the meat and cutting through its richness. In the 1970s, this side appeared on every Easter menu and Sunday roast, especially when new potatoes first hit the market stalls. But as frozen chips and oven fries became household staples, the delicate herb-bright flavor of minted potatoes faded from view. By the late 1980s, year-round processed sides pushed this seasonal treat off the table, and the ritual of boiling new potatoes with a sprig of garden mint became a rarity. Yet nothing else delivers that fresh, grassy lift, proof that sometimes the simplest sides are the most missed. Number 12, braised celery, was the soft veg surprise that once sat beside every proper Sunday roast. Thick stalks, trimmed and peeled, sweated gently in butter before bathing in chicken or beef stock until they turned silky and tender. The transformation was dramatic. A vegetable known for crunch and raw diet snacks became mellow, almost luxurious, soaking up the savory richness of the broth. This side offered a gentle counterpoint to roasted meats, its pale green ribbons holding the flavors of bay leaf, black pepper, and sometimes a sprinkle of parsley. In the 1970s, braised celery reflected a wider love for soft, comforting textures. Think creamed leeks and mashed roots, before the rise of crisp salads and raw veg trays. By the 1980s, slimming clubs and diet trends promoted raw celery as the guilt-free snack, and its slow-cooked cousin nearly vanished from home kitchens. Yet few sides deliver the same soothing warmth or subtle pairing with roast chicken or beef. As retro comfort makes a comeback, braised celery's quiet elegance deserves a fresh look, reminding us how even the humblest veg can turn special with a little patience and stock. Number 11. Carrot and sultana salad brought a splash of color to every picnic hamper and school buffet in the 1970s. Grated carrot, glistening with golden sultanas, all bound together in a generous coating of salad cream, never mayonnaise. The tangy, sweet dressing was the secret, cutting through the natural earthiness of the carrot and plumping up the dried fruit until it almost burst. For a generation raised on packed lunches and church hall teas, this was the side dish that promised both comfort and a hint of sunshine, even on a rainy day. Salad cream's sharpness set it apart from the rising tide of mayonnaise and vinaigrette, which swept in during the late 1970s as continental tastes took hold. As supermarkets expanded their chilled aisles, creamy coleslaws and pasta salads edged out this simple mix, and the once ubiquitous bottle of salad cream retreated to the back of the fridge. Yet nothing else delivers that precise balance of sweet and tangy, soft and crisp. A nostalgic reminder of a time when British salads didn't try to be French, and every forkful felt like a treat. Number 10. Pickled onions and pickled beetroot delivered a sharp, vinegary punch to every pub lunch and ploughman's platter in the 1970s. Crisp, bite-sized onions steeped in malt vinegar, sometimes spiced with peppercorns or bay leaf, waited in glass jars behind the bar, ready to cut through the richness of cheddar, ham, or a slab of pork pie. Beetroot began as earthy, boiled rounds, then soaked up a deep crimson hue from their tangy bath. Homemade versions often included a dash of sugar or a clove for warmth. The ritual of home pickling filled kitchens with the unmistakable scent of vinegar each autumn, as families preserved garden gluts for the winter months. Every household claimed a secret recipe, fiercely debated at Women's Institute meetings and over pub counters. By the late 1970s, supermarket shelves lined up mass-produced jars, promising convenience but losing the subtlety and crunch of the homemade kind. The rise of ready-made lunch packs and continental salads edged these pickles off many tables, and the art of home preservation began to slip away. Yet nothing else delivers that instant palate-cleansing tang or the nostalgia of a ploughman's lunch enjoyed in a country pub, where a single pickled onion could make a pint of bitter taste even better. Number 9. Peas pudding stands as a symbol of thrift and northern pride, especially in the industrial heartlands of the Northeast. Dried yellow split peas, simmered slowly with a ham bone and onions, transform into a firm, sliceable spread, mildly earthy, pale gold, and sturdy enough to hold its shape on a plate. In the 1970s, canteens and family kitchens alike relied on peas pudding to stretch a meal further, making the most of every scrap from the weekly ham. The secret was long, gentle cooking, coaxing flavor from bone and pulse, then letting the mixture cool until it could be sliced or spooned onto thick wedges of stotty cake. No Sunday ham or boiled bacon felt complete without a slab of this pudding tucked inside a soft, floury roll, the flavors mingling with a dab of English mustard. As the decade wore on, the decline of bone cookery and the rise of convenience foods pushed peas pudding to the margins, surviving mainly in regional markets and chip shop counters. Yet its legacy endures. No other side so perfectly captures the ingenuity of making something hearty from almost nothing, or the quiet satisfaction of a well-filled stotty on a cold northern day. In eighth place, leek gratin carried the green and white of Wales straight to the dinner table. Halved leeks, their layers fanned open, were nestled into a baking dish and blanketed with a silky white bechamel sauce. A generous layer of sharp Welsh cheddar finished the top, bubbling into a golden crust that sealed in the sweetness below. In the 1970s, this dish was a proud feature at Eisteddfod competitions, where cooks vied for the perfect balance of tender leek and creamy sauce. The preparation demanded patience, washing away grit, slicing, slow simmering, and whisking sauce from scratch, making it a labor of love for home cooks and a rare treat in pub kitchens. As pub menus leaned toward quicker, reheatable sides, leek gratin's time-intensive method saw it quietly dropped in favor of frozen vegetable mixes and packet cheese sauces. Yet for many, the memory of that bubbling, fragrant bake remains tied to Welsh identity itself, a symbol every bit as iconic as the daffodil or dragon. Modern revivals use lighter sauces or swap in leeks from farmers' markets, but the essential comfort endures. Few sides evoke a sense of place and pride quite like leeks baked under a cheddar crust, still worthy of a spot at any table celebrating British heritage. Number 7. Bread rolls and stotties once anchored. Northern lunches and working-class tea breaks with their unmistakable heft. Stotties, those wide, flat, pale loaves, emerged from the coal-fired bakeries of Newcastle and Durham, shaped by hands dusted in flour and lard. The dough, rich with fat and slow risen, gave each roll a dense, chewy crumb and a crust that crackled under the knife. Unlike the airy uniform rolls that would later line supermarket shelves, these breads were designed to hold up to the heartiest fillings: thick slices of ham, a generous slab of peas pudding, or a slick of dripping saved from Sunday's roast. For decades, stotties and their smaller cousins were the backbone of pitmen's packed lunches, their solidity a promise of sustenance during long shifts underground or at the factory bench. Local bakeries, sometimes just a single oven in the back of a corner shop, turned out dozens each morning, the scent of baking bread mingling with coal smoke in the lanes. But as the 1970s drew on, mass-produced, pillow-soft rolls edged out these regional staples, prized more for shelf life than substance. By the 1980s, the stotty's presence faded, surviving mainly in Geordie chip shops and specialty bakeries. Yet the memory of tearing into that chewy, floury round, still warm, still sturdy, remains strong for those who grew up in its shadow. Today, a new wave of artisan bakers is reviving the tradition, swapping out lard for butter or oil, but keeping the spirit of the original. Bread as social glue, built to last through a day's hard work and to cradle every last spoonful of peas pudding or cold ham. Number 6, Clapshot brings Scotland's festival table to life with a mash that's anything but ordinary. Swede, known as neeps north of the border, meets fluffy potato, both boiled until just tender, then crushed together with a generous knob of butter and a handful of snipped chives or spring onion. The result is a pale gold mash, flecked with green, sweet from the root, earthy from the potato, and lifted by that grassy herbal note. On Burns night, Clapshot is essential, served alongside haggis and a dram of whiskey, anchoring the meal in tradition and regional pride. The dish's roots run deep in Scottish parish kitchens, and family gatherings, where cooks debated the right ratio of swede to potato and whether to add black pepper or just salt. Unlike the plain mash that dominated English school dinners and institutional trays, clapshot was a celebration, a marker of occasion, a dish that said, "Tonight, we honor our own." By the late 1970s, as supermarket mash and packet mixes spread across the UK, clapshot faded from everyday meals outside Scotland. Yet for those who remember, nothing else delivers that combination of sweetness, earthiness, and fresh-cut chive. A side that's both comforting and quietly proud. Modern Scottish chefs have begun to revive clapshot, swapping in olive oil or roasting the roots for extra depth, but the heart of the dish remains unchanged. A humble, herby mash with the power to turn any dinner into a celebration of heritage. In the fifth place, swede and carrot mash brought a burst of color to the plainest school dinner tray. Chopped swede and carrots, boiled until soft, then mashed together with a knob of margarine or butter, turned into what children across Britain simply called orange mash. The vivid hue made it stand out from the beige landscape of institutional meals, and for many, it was the only vegetable side that didn't draw groans at the lunch table. School cooks favored this mash for its thrift. Swede was cheap, carrots even cheaper, and both could be bought in bulk, peeled and diced by the sackful. Batch cooking made sense. One massive pot could feed hundreds, and the mash held its heat well, staying soft and sweet even on cold, drafty afternoons when the power flickered. Some recall the way the mash paired perfectly with a meat pie or a slice of roast pork, soaking up gravy and stretching the meal just a little further. For caterers, it was a side that hid less popular veg behind a buttery sweetness, making the most of what the budget allowed. By the late 1970s, as instant mash and frozen veg medleys took over, swede and carrot mash slipped quietly off the menu, surviving mainly in regional kitchens and Sunday lunches. Yet nothing else delivers quite the same gentle comfort. A spoonful of soft, sweet mash, warm against the chill of a grey British day, and a reminder of the ingenuity that turned humble roots into a side dish worth remembering. In the fourth place, braised red cabbage filled British kitchens with a sweet, spiced aroma that meant winter was truly here. Shredded red cabbage, tart cooking apples, and a splash of vinegar simmered slowly with cloves, cinnamon, and sometimes a handful of sultanas, creating a glossy, jewel-toned side that stood out against the beige landscape of roast dinners. The magic was in the balance. Apple softened the bite of vinegar, while a pinch of brown sugar coaxed out the cabbage's natural sweetness. Served steaming hot beside roast pork or beef, it brought a tangy, festive lift that cut through the richness of gravy and fat. But the long, gentle cooking that gave braised red cabbage its depth became a liability during the 1973 oil crisis and the three-day week. With electricity and gas rationed, home cooks and school caterers were urged to avoid slow oven bakes and embrace energy-saving shortcuts. Pressure cookers took over, promising the same melting texture in a fraction of the time, though some claimed the flavor never quite matched the slow-stewed original. Cookery columns and women's magazines of the era offered tips for hob-top versions, urging readers to keep the lid tight and the heat low to stretch every bit of fuel. By the late 1970s, the dish's association with Christmas and Sunday roasts kept it on festive tables, even as everyday appearances dwindled. Its decline mirrored the fading of other slow-cooked classics, replaced by frozen vegetable medleys and quick-boil sides. Yet the scent of vinegar and spice, wafting from a bubbling pot, still signals comfort and celebration. In recent years, some cooks have revived the tradition, using modern appliances or cider vinegar for a sharper edge, but the heart of the dish remains unchanged. A sweet, tangy, jewel-bright reminder of warmth in the coldest months, and of a time when the cost of a side was measured in both pennies and precious hours of heat. In the third place, cauliflower cheese delivers the kind of creamy comfort that once defined the British pub lunch and Sunday dinner alike. Florets of cauliflower, blanched until just tender, are blanketed in a thick, velvety bechamel made from flour, butter, and whole milk, then loaded with sharp, mature cheddar. The sauce is poured over the cauliflower, ensuring every crevice is coated, before the dish is baked until a golden, bubbling gratin forms on top. The signature crust, bubbling and crisp at the edges, signals a side dish built for indulgence. In the 1970s, no proper roast beef or pork dinner felt complete without a generous spoonful of this rich, cheesy bake. Pubs and carveries prided themselves on their technique, with some chefs adding a pinch of mustard powder or a grating of nutmeg for extra depth. At home, the dish was a staple for stretching a roast and brightening up a plate of beige food. But as slimming clubs and diet columns gained ground, the creamy cheese sauce became a target, branded as sinful, heavy, and out of step with modern, lighter eating. Supermarkets responded by pushing frozen cauliflower mixes and low-fat cheese sauces, but these versions rarely delivered the same satisfying richness. By the mid-1980s, cauliflower cheese was quietly dropped from many pub menus, replaced by steamed vegetables and packet sauces that promised health over heartiness. Yet nostalgia has a way of reviving old favorites. In recent years, chefs and home cooks have returned to the classic, sometimes swapping double cream for skimmed milk or adding roasted garlic for a new twist. The essential appeal remains unchanged. The contrast of tender cauliflower and silky, deeply flavored cheese sauce, capped by that irresistible golden crust. Few sides evoke the warmth of a shared meal or the pleasure of true comfort food quite like cauliflower cheese, a dish that proves beige can be beautiful and every table deserves a little indulgence. In the second place, mushy peas bring the unmistakable taste and ritual of the northern chip shop straight to the dinner table. Marrowfat peas, larger and starchier than garden peas, are soaked overnight with a pinch of bicarbonate of soda, then simmered until they collapse into a soft, spoonable mash. The result is a vivid green, slightly minty side that clings to chips or pies, warming hands and bellies alike. In the 1970s, chip shops from Blackpool to Leeds ladled mushy peas into polystyrene cups, the steam rising as customers queued along rain-soaked pavements. For many, the experience was as much about the serving style as the taste. A plastic spoon, a dash of white pepper, and sometimes a splash of malt vinegar or mint sauce on top. What set mushy peas apart was their role as a working-class icon, a cheap filling side that stretched a portion of chips into a meal. School canteens and seaside cafes echoed the chip shop tradition, offering peas alongside battered fish or meat pies, their mellow flavor cutting through the salt and grease. The science behind the softness lies in the soak. Bicarbonate breaks down the pea skins, ensuring a creamy, uniform texture that garden peas can't match. But by the late 1980s, fast food chains and supermarket freezers began swapping out marrow-fat peas for the brighter, firmer garden variety. The shift promised year-round consistency, but lost the slow-cooked, starchy comfort that defined the original. Today, mushy peas survive mainly in traditional chippies and northern pubs, where the sight of that green mash still signals a meal made for sharing and savoring. No other side captures the communal spirit of a Friday night at the chippy, or the simple pleasure of scooping up every last bite with a chip. For those who remember, mushy peas are more than a side. They're a ritual, a marker of place and time, and a taste worth bringing back to the table. And finally, in first place, bread sauce, the quiet heart of a proper British roast, and the side dish most deserving of a return to the Sunday table. Warm milk, gently infused with whole cloves and a halved onion, forms the base. Stale white bread, torn or crumbed, is stirred in until the sauce thickens to a soft, spoonable consistency. Butter melts in at the last moment, sometimes with a pinch of white pepper or a bay leaf slipped into the pot. The aroma alone, clove, onion, dairy, signals comfort and celebration, a promise that the roast is nearly ready. Bread sauce wasn't just a way to use up yesterday's loaf. It was a tradition, especially at Christmas, where it nestled beside the turkey, soaking up juices and carrying the warmth of the kitchen to every plate. In the 1970s, no festive meal or Sunday roast chicken felt whole without a jug of bread sauce sitting alongside the gravy boat. Thick enough to cling to a fork, yet soft enough to pool on the plate, it offered a subtle spice that cut through the richness of roasted meat and crispy potatoes. For many, the ritual of making bread sauce, simmering the milk, fishing out the cloves, stirring in the breadcrumbs, was as much a part of the meal as carving the bird. By the late 1970s, changing tastes and the rise of lighter continental sauces nudged bread sauce aside. Instant gravy granules, packet stuffing, and a push against dairy-heavy sides meant that the blue-rimmed jug of bread sauce faded from all but the most traditional tables. Yet its memory lingers. As food historian Jane Grigson once wrote, "No Christmas dinner would be complete without its bowl of creamy, clove-scented bread sauce, a comfort found only at home." The dish endures as a symbol of British ingenuity, turning scraps into sustenance, and sustenance into comfort. With stale bread, a splash of milk, and patience, bread sauce transforms the ordinary into the unforgettable. In a world chasing novelty, perhaps it's time to bring back the side that padded plates and hearts alike, and reminded us that the simplest traditions are often the ones we miss most. From the luxurious potato dauphinoise at number 15 to the clove-scented bread sauce crowned at number 1, our journey through 15 forgotten British side dishes reveals far more than just nostalgia on a plate. Throughout the ranking, one striking pattern emerges. These dishes were shaped by a blend of regional pride, economic necessity, and changing social trends. From the energy-conscious braised red cabbage of the 3-day week to the convenience-driven rise of packet-savory rice. Surprising entries like braised celery and stotty rolls show just how creative and resourceful cooks became during times of rationing and industrial change. What qualified each dish was not just taste, but the emotional and cultural memories they stirred, reminders of Sunday roasts, school dinners, and communal pub tables. In every case, these sides were more than mere accompaniments. They were threads in the fabric of British life. Their decline was driven by shifts in diet, convenience, and mass production. But their lasting appeal proves that food heritage endures. Together, these 15 dishes remind us that what we eat and what we remember tells the true story of who we are